Hello and welcome to The Cloaked. I am your host, White Owl. This is a YouTube episode. Today we'll have the episode of Rey Rivera. This episode was cut and edited specifically for YouTube. This episode was actually recorded 3 years ago, and we revised a look into the Rey Rivera, where we discovered new evidence, new information, especially since it's in the Netflix special for Unsolved Mysteries. And we did an episode that will be posted on YouTube, and it will be definitely re-edited specifically for YouTube. And if you want to listen to full episodes, you can definitely check us out in any podcast provider, and hopefully you'll like this episode. Today's a very special episode. We'll be telling you guys a very interesting case, is that of the death of Rey Rivera. Now, this is a very interesting case just because of the mysterious circumstance that it finds itself. So I'm gonna give you guys, basically I'm gonna give you the rundown of the case, and then I'll break it down. So what we have here is Rey Rivera, who was 32 at this time, aspiring filmmaker, and he was an editor of a financial letter, which was his 9-to-5 job. Now, Mr. Rivera here was, unfortunately last seen on May 16, 2006. His body was then discovered about 7 days later inside a meeting room, Belvedere Hotel in Baltimore. Now his body was found by the cleaning people. I guess the ballroom was going to be used, and so they had to go in there and clean. Now, when they go in there, they discover his body. They found obviously a hole on the roof where his body had gone in through the ceiling and onto the floor. And based on how he was found and his injuries, detectives found out that he had jumped from the rooftop of the hotel. So the investigation starts, and they look into how he jumped. Now, the rooftop where he jumped was 14 stories up, and he crashed through the lower roof. Now, again, like I said, 14 stories as he jumped off. And forensics, after they looked at how he landed, where he jumped, they estimated that he had to be going 10 to 11 miles per hour when he jumped. Another interesting part is that he landed facing up. His phone was found, and his flip-flops. His phone, interestingly, was found intact. Now, you would think that his phone would have crashed and pretty much would be completely damaged jumping from that high up. So again, now you think about it, Rivera was about 6 feet 5 inches tall, 250 pounds. They estimated that he had to run about a good 43 feet off the rooftop, going about 11 miles an hour, get to the point where he impacted the lower rooftop. So this is something that's very important to the case, and it gets pointed out a lot. And his brother Angel believes that there was no way he would have been up there on the rooftop. Now, especially since his brother had a fear of heights. Now, that's another important point. Now, another important part is on the day of his disappearance, his wife notes that he took off like if he was late to like a meeting. Now, when they looked through the security cams, that was one thing they tried to look for to get the clues of why he was up there, and especially since the family didn't believe that he would have jumped off and committed suicide. The other thing that we would point out, that he did leave a note, but the note doesn't indicate that he was ending his life. His note is very strange, and I will go over the note here in a bit. But as far as the security cameras did not capture him going in and getting onto the rooftop. One of the things that they said in the case, because the cameras were malfunctioning, somehow they were programmed. Again, they were programmed to record over itself, therefore erasing the day before. Now, he did leave a note on his laptop, and so this note begins with the Freemason stuff. And this is where it's a little strange, this note. Now, Freemason related verbiage and contained a list of names, close friends, family of Rivera. He talks about making his family 5 years younger, kind of an odd request. The note also mentions the death of the actor Christopher Reeve, director Stanley Kubrick, which is bizarre, which is very strange, right? Why talk about such a great actor as Christopher Reeve and amazing director director as Stanley Kubrick. Now, Stanley Kubrick, as we know, we've talked about this in the past, where on other episodes, talking about the moon landing, talking about secret societies and stuff like that. So we've mentioned Kubrick before. So now you have to think about Freemason stuff, Christopher Reeve. We all know him as the actor who portrayed Superman. So this is a lot of things that you have to take in consideration of why he would name this stuff. Why bring it up in a note like this? Now, when Angel spoke with the employees, now the employees of the hotel think that he was pushed. Now, why would they say that? Now, they themselves make a very important statement. Now, the police and the forensics believe that he jumped off using access to these stairs from a different area of the hotel. Employees, on the other hand, believe that that wouldn't be logical. Like, why would he use the access to the stairs on that area, on that section, when it's more convenient and more logical to use the stairs closest and easier access to get to the rooftop? Why was he up there? Was he meeting someone? And again, Angel points out that he had a fear of heights. So if he went to this area of the hotel, that would mean that there's no way, again, because there's no amount of floor for him to run and jump off the building. This would mean that he had a force push him off the building and into the area in which he landed. Which, you think about that's more logical, and that would make more sense. Now, again, this is the employees making this statement because, again, Mr. Rivera has never been to this building before. Now, if you've never been to a building before and you wanted to get to the rooftop, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the most easiest way to access the rooftop, right? I mean, you got to think about it. Like, if you're going to a building and you need to get to the top floor, you get to the elevators that are the closest because they're going to take you to the top, right? So what do you do here? He must have done the same thing. The same type of thinking is that he would do the easiest thing, is choose the stairs that is more easy to access. I mean, that seems more logical, and the employees tend to think so too. Now, the employees work there, and I would be more inclined to think that the employees would know best. Now, the other strange part is that his phone was still intact, fully. Now, jumping from 14 stories is, how did that phone not shatter? Think about it. Didn't shatter. How's that possible? His flip-flops and his phone both were found on the adjacent part of the rooftop. Now, I guess him falling off, wind could have pushed easily, these items off into the adjacent part of the rooftop. Now, another thing that was pointed out by his wife, Allison, was that he was missing a money clip. He took it everywhere he went. It was a family heirloom kind of thing. Now, the day he went missing, he had it with him. Now, this wasn't found on the rooftop. You could attribute that to maybe the detectives and the people up there didn't look hard enough for it. I mean, it's a money clip. Like, also at the same time, did it have money clipped to it? His ID, anything else, cards, whatever. Anything that would have been clipped to it. I mean, it's proper use, obviously. He took it everywhere he went. Allison claims that he had it whenever she saw him leave. Where is it? Where did it go? Again, we could easily say that no one looked hard enough to find it. And it's possible. It's possible it's still up there. The wind could have blown it. It's a lighter thing. It could have gone further, maybe off the rooftop. Maybe somebody found it. Who knows? There's many possible reasons and logical explanations to that itself, right? Maybe he lost it somewhere in the hotel. His death was ruled, just to make sure I have this correct, which it wasn't really ruled a suicide. His official cause of death was declared undetermined. Now, based on the circumstance, the number of odd facts around the case that has led the family to suspect foul play. So there's a lot of other things that come to play when it comes to this. Now, the thing with Rivera here is that there's something that gets stated that kind of changed the direction of, maybe he was going through something, maybe he had some like mental illness, which is, something that males don't really talk about. Maybe he was hiding something. This is the part where there's things that complicate the story, make it more real, more with a sense of danger. But Mr. Rivera, before he disappeared, he becomes a little bit overprotective, right, of his wife. So what ends up happening is Rey, which I guess normally wouldn't accompany his wife to the running track. Now, while Allison is running around the track doing her thing, she notices something. Rivera was sitting at the bleachers. It appears that a man had approached Mr. Rivera and was speaking to him. Now, for how long, who knows? Because this is when she noticed this was happening, and then this man left. And so who knows how long they had been speaking to each other. Now, the other thing that she points out is that Mr. Rivera seemed to be spooked by something. Maybe something that was said to him. Maybe he was threatened. Again, here's the other thing, is that at this point, you could think that if he was threatened, right? Let's say he was threatened, that it was possible that the following events may have even supported his paranoia of the possible threat to either him, his family, to his wife. And so it really doesn't help with the following events that occurred. Now, after this encounter at the residence, their alarm was triggered. This is a few days after, and Rivera got up and went to go investigate. Okay, why is it being triggered? Somebody trying to break in, other possibilities as stated by the police, squirrels or vermin. It could be a number of things that may have triggered the alarm. That was one day. The next day, again, the alarm goes off and Mr. Rivera goes and investigates. Again, he gets up and he's very spooked. Now, the first time he went to go investigate, Allison found him in the basement, and he had a face of fear, basically is what she says. And so who knows what he may have encountered or why he was so fearful. Was it because somebody said something to him? Was it because somebody had threatened him and his family, and this cause was making it more real? Was somebody trying to break in to get to him? And the second time the alarm goes off the following day, it doesn't help his paranoia and his fear of what could possibly be happening. What could have happened to him? Was he being threatened by somebody in the Masonic Lodge, one of the Freemasons, something that he may have uncovered? This is kind of the thing that sometimes people don't think that, no, that's not possible, that's not logical, it's crazy, there's no way this is happening. I will point out as a perfect example, way back in the 90s, movies were being made that the government was listening to you, that the government was keeping tabs on people, that there was things that they had, devices, applications, systems that were being used and utilized, and people were on the job to find out a way to listen to every person. And then you have, years later, you have your WikiLeaks, where these new applications were being found, that there was these systems that were being installed into your TVs, into your phones, and these software that you would be able to download and even upload and install it without anybody even knowing. And that was a way to listen to the American people. Now, that in itself, many could have said, well, that's strange. But what is stranger than fiction? So, with that being said, think about this. A lot of people don't believe it. A lot of people don't think that it is possible. It is possible. It's a 50-50 chance, right? It's crazy, but the family knows them, and then the employees to say what they say, and coincidentally the security cams suffer a malfunction that they start somehow recording over itself, even though it says something that had to be programmed, and it was found that it was programmed the day he went missing to record over itself. How? What are the odds of that? What are the possibilities? Who was he meeting up there? Why? And he was found facing up. That's the other thing. Think about that. If you go meet somebody at the rooftop, you're facing them because that's who you're speaking to. You face who you're speaking to. Now, if you fall onto the floor, let's say you're talking to somebody and somehow you ended up on the floor. Well, how did you end on the floor? There's a very good chance if you up on the floor and your back is on the floor, that means either A, you tripped going backwards on something, or you tumbled, or you don't have a very good sense of gravity, or someone pushed you. Think about it, the logic. Someone must have pushed you to the ground. So, and again, you think about him, doing research on the Freemasons. Was he really writing a screenplay? We don't have that, but Allison states that he had completed the screenplay and he had done a lot of research for the writing of the screenplay and his book. So, it's very possible that this is something that he was either had been working or he had finished and he had stumbled on something. Again, who knows what could have happened on that. Now, I will go over his 9 to 5, which is one of the other things that's very important to this case, in my opinion, because it could point out to other things. Now, Rey had been working on a publication run. Now, he did this newsletter for a financial company. And I'll name it because this company is public and it's in the initial investigation and it's in many of the articles that are out there. Now, you can read these articles, but I will say what the information is here. He did this publication for Stansberry and Agora Inc. And that's a financial group. It kind of gives its people information on financial stocks. Here you can buy this stock, buy this stock, buy this other stock. Here's the information that you need to know about purchasing this stock, that type of thing. So it's a newsletter that people get, like an email blast. The report was called the Rebound Report. Now, Rivera's job was to produce content on this newsletter. Basically, it was just advice information to these investors and about these companies. What Rey believed is that this publication, which he was friends with Mr. Stansberry, who I guess gave him the job to work this 9 to 5. Now, again, you think about Mr. Rivera was a creative person, right? He was an inspired filmmaker. He wanted to make movies. And so this was something that was killing his creativity, this 9 to 5 job. And nobody really wants to work those 9 to 5 jobs that they really don't like, that they really hate, because that's not ideal for somebody creative like Mr. Rivera. Now, Stansberry, he was guilty of SEC violations in the past. Stansberry was essentially found guilty for selling information to clients that was wholly untrue and made up. So they were selling false information. And so he was made to pay a fine of $1.5 million. Now, this was about a year before Mr. Rivera had joined. Now, Rivera eventually wanted to step back from doing the publication. Like, that wasn't something he wanted to continue doing. He wanted to step away from that. So, he was very unhappy and he didn't feel right because some of the stocks that he had been writing about weren't rebounding. So the last thing he was working on was some kind of video project. And so some of the stuff that he noticed that he was mentioning as far as stocks, they weren't going up. And people, again, started to lose a good amount of money, especially if they bought a lot. Now, Agora sent out a letter to all its employees that forbid them to speak to anyone about the case and about Mr. Rivera, that they couldn't speak about it. They couldn't speak anyone to it. And so it kind of leads to the idea, did Mr. Rivera find something that was to him considered unethical that the company was doing? And maybe the company, again, this is something that in many forums I have found that lead the idea, but without saying so much about it. Was he taken out? Was it something that he had as far as information? I cannot say. It's something that's very interesting. But here's the other thing: is that there's a lot of things that Mr. Rivera was looking into. And so, was there something either with the Freemasons? Was he meeting something? Was it something completely not related? Which is very possible. Was there something that he was doing that no one knew about? Some kind of job of some sort that he was doing that was extra income? Or was there something that, he encountered? Was he being blackmailed for something? And here's the other thing. He left such a strange note, that strange note about Christopher Reeve, Kubrick, making his family 5 years younger. Very odd note. And one of the things that Young kind of points out and doesn't really speak a whole lot about it is that the notes seem almost like a request of things, of a lot of things, even for him to make himself younger. Was he doesn't go into it, but it sounds like he was making some kind of deal with someone, like a deal with the devil, maybe. It's just, again, it's very odd that he left such a note that has these verbiage. And the other part, again, his phone being unbroken, money clip not found. Was he mugged and then taken up there? Was he meeting somebody, then he got mugged and then got pushed? Was he being blackmailed and then the meeting took place on the roof and got mugged and pushed? And there's just a lot to intake. Unfortunately, this case, for a lot of people and for Mr. Rivera's family, it remains to be a mystery because no one really knows what happened up there. And unfortunately, there's no recordings. And this is many cases actually that we've talked about what happened in hotels. I mean, one being the Eliza Lamb, this very mysterious death that again happened on the rooftop. This is very interesting because the tapes got erased. Again, programmed on the day he went missing to record over itself. Again, what are the odds of that? There's just a lot of things that point out that are very, very uncertain, very mysterious in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, I think something happened. He did something, or he was involved with something, and he may have been blackmailed or tricked into something. And honestly, it's very difficult to say with not a whole lot of information, especially since his wife saw him speaking to a man at the park, and he had this look of fear in his eyes. And then the days after that, the occurrences that happened, he was very overprotected, and something was obviously scaring him. Whatever that man said, it ends at him and Mr. Rivera, whoever this mysterious man was. And unfortunately, it's going to be one of those cases where it's always going to be left to what if and could it be and what happened. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you like this episode, please let me know. Hope you guys like and share this episode and give us a rating, whether it be on iTunes or SoundCloud, any other podcast provider. And I'll see you on the next episode. Laters.